U.S. election live, Trump transition starts, Biden to speak after Harris loss. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is on track to win the popular vote, with provisional counts showing him ahead of his Democratic rival Kamala Harris by nearly 5 million ballots. Harris, the U.S. vice president, has conceded the presidential election but promised to keep fighting for democracy and the rule of law. More Democrats are questioning whether an earlier decision by 81-year-old President Joe Biden to drop out of the presidential race would have put their party in a better position in the election. The biggest onus of this loss is on President Biden, said Andrew Yang, who ran against Biden in 2020 for the Democratic nomination and endorsed Harris's unsuccessful run. If he had stepped down in January instead of July, we may be in a very different place. Would Democrats fare better if Biden had stepped back earlier? I don't know if we can say for certain, but it's a question we'll be asking ourselves for some time, said Matt Bennett, executive vice president at the Democratic-aligned group Third Way. The Associated Press cited 3 unnamed advisors to the Harris campaign as expressing deep frustration with Biden for failing to recognize earlier in the election cycle that he was not up to the challenge. After a weak debate performance against Trump and mounting concerns about his health, Biden dropped out of the race in July and endorsed Harris. Harris's loss against Trump has many analysts wondering about the future of her running mate Tim Walz. Walz was a little-known Midwestern governor until he was catapulted into national politics after Harris picked him as her running mate in August. He now faces a divided government when he returns home from the presidential campaign trail. While Democrats will keep their one-seat majority in the 67-member Senate, the control of the 134-seat House is up in the air. According to a tally by the Associated Press, the chamber stood at 65-65 on Wednesday afternoon. It would end in a 67-67 tie if the leaders of the last 4 undeclared races remain ahead. This has raised questions about whether he would seek re-election for a third term in 2026. When Donald Trump first took the U.S. presidency in 2016, there were hopes in Moscow that the billionaire-turned-politician would be friendlier to Russia's interests. It didn't exactly play out that way. Despite indictments of multiple Trump associates over allegations that the Kremlin tried to sway elections in Trump's favor, he amped up sanctions against Moscow and boosted Ukraine's defensive capabilities with Javelin missiles once in office. Now, 8 years later, with Trump again winning the presidency, the reaction from the Kremlin has so far been far more muted. The mood, in the White House, is one of melancholy. Obviously, this is not the election result it had hoped for. There had been a lot of excitement about the possibility of Kamala Harris making history as the first female president of the U.S. While there are cracks in that glass ceiling, it still has not been broken. We expect that Joe Biden, when he addresses the nation, will talk about that, about Harris's historic achievements. The fact that she has been a tremendous partner, a tremendous public servant, led a historic campaign, and was really guided, he believes, by a strong moral compass. That she has moved the goalposts a little bit further. During Trump's first term as president, he was largely dismissive of African nations, even famously referring to some of them as shithole countries. However, he also put forward some initiatives to boost investment in the continent. Al Jazeera's Famida Miller, reporting from Johannesburg, South Africa, says, relations with African countries could be less predictable under Donald Trump, but some say he could have a more pragmatic approach to the continent, one that's dictated by what benefits the United States more than anything else. Everybody had been expecting that Elon Musk would hold an official administration role. Donald Trump had certainly been intimating that. What we've been hearing as of Wednesday, though, is that Howard Lutnick, the co-chair of Trump's transition team, has thrown some cold water on that. So, it's not clear if Elon Musk is now backing out. It's a little bit vague. What we do know is that Senator Marco Rubio may be rumored for a Secretary of State role, Senator Tom Cotton potentially considered for a Defense Secretary role. And even Trump's primary rival Vivek Ramaswamy, along with North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, may be looked at for cabinet roles. A lot of names floating out there. We also know we won't see Trump's family members taking active roles in the administration like last time. But they will be part of the transition team, making the decisions and vetting the people who will be part of the cabinet. French President Emmanuel Macron has spoken about the implications of a Trump presidency. Speaking to a gathering of European leaders, he said Europe should stop depending on the US for security and instead follow Trump's lead in defending the interests of his population. We must not delegate forever our security to America, Macron said, arguing that Trump would legitimately defend the interests of the American people and asking, are we ready to defend the interests of the European people? Trump previously accused European NATO allies of not paying their fair share in the security grouping and threatened to encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want with such nations. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance, speaking to NBC's Meet the Press last month, said the U.S. under Trump would remain in NATO but wants countries to actually carry their share of the defense burden and not be a welfare client. France's foreign minister has said he sees a chance to end Israel's war on Gaza following Trump's election. I believe a window has opened for putting an end to the tragedy in which Israelis, Palestinians, and the entire region have been immersed since October 7 last year, Noel Barat told reporters alongside outgoing Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz, citing Trump's wish to see the end of the Middle East's endless wars, as well as Israel's recent tactical successes. Trump has repeatedly said Israel should quickly wrap up its war in Gaza, and that he will give Israel whatever it needs to do so. Many Palestinians fear Trump, who has described himself as history's most pro-Israel president, will be even more tolerant of Israeli abuses than his predecessor. It makes no difference to us, said Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian, noting that Iran prioritizes relations with Islamic and neighboring countries. Iran-allied Hezbollah also commented on Trump's ascent to the White House, saying it would welcome any effort to stop the war in Lebanon, but did not expect a significant policy change. It might be a change in the party who is in power, but when it comes to Israel, they have more or less the same policy, said Hezbollah lawmaker Ibrahim al-Musawi. We want to see actions, we want to see decisions taken. The FBI, the US's top federal law enforcement agency, is warning of fabricated videos that misuse its name and insignia to undermine confidence in the electoral system. One of the videos falsely claims that the FBI was made aware that at least 301 electors in the Electoral College reported attempted bribery and blackmail by a political party. Another video falsely claims that the FBI is investigating voter pressure at U.S. military bases overseas. A third claims that a U.S. social media company has seen an increase in the number of separatist groups to include a total audience of more than 40 million people, and a fourth falsely claims that the FBI has ordered media to restrict the spread of information about the bribery of electors. The FBI did not ascribe blame or origin to any of these videos. On Election Day, several polling places in Georgia were forced to close for a few hours when bomb threats against them were issued by entities originating in Russia, officials said. The day after Kamala Harris's devastating loss to the Republican, anger and soul-searching have taken hold of the Democratic Party. Many Democrats Reuters news agency spoke to are pointing the finger at President Joe Biden, who dropped out of the race over the summer after a train-wreck debate performance against Trump, and questions about his mental fitness for the job dominated headlines. One Democratic donor who spoke to Reuters asked, "Why did Joe Biden hold on for as long as he did? He should have not concealed his health and dropped out a lot sooner." A Democratic official blamed malpractice by Biden's inner circle. No one would tell him no, the unnamed official who spoke to Reuters said, criticizing the White House communications and political teams. So it's Joe, but also Joe's core apparatus. Stunning and well-documented chickens coming home to roost. One Harris aide said her campaign was doomed from the start by her loyalty to the unpopular president. Democrats could have won with someone who broke from him, offered different policies, and presented as a candidate of change, they told Reuters. Turkey expects Trump's White House will lower tariffs on its steel and textile exports, its trade minister said, as the lira and Turkish assets continue to rally on prospects of new U.S. trade and foreign policies. We expect that customs duties will be reduced in our foreign trade, especially in steel and textile products, Omer Bolat said on broadcaster A. Haber, adding that Turkey's defense and financial sectors could also benefit. Trump has promised to levy a 10% tariff on all imported goods, to restrict migration and to quickly end wars taking place in Turkey.